If you struggle with soft layered haircuts, keep watching. I'm going to be showing you some time efficient ways of getting a long layered haircut starting right now. This is Emma. She has a long layered haircut as it is already, but we want to actually bring the old curtain fringe into the new length. She's okay with losing some of her length today, but still wanting to have a little bit of length to it. And we also want to put some layers in. So I'm going to be using the old layering right here as my baseline for the rest of the layering around the face. I'm doing some heavy face framing through here, still keeping some strength on the bottom, taking the length up to where her old layers are. So that it's still removing about 3 inches from the bottom, and then doing some soft layering through here so there's more movement, bringing up her curtain fringe as well. Style of cutting we're going to be doing is French hair cutting. I'm going to be using the Olivia Garden Silk Cut Pros. These are 6.5 inch shears, and I'm going to be using this for the entire haircut. I'm also going to be using the Olivia Garden Carbon Light comb. I like it because it's nice and long. I'm going to be taking longer, bigger sections, which is why I'm using the 6.5 inch shear as well. We start sanding because I want to cut as close to the body as possible. And I also want, for ergonomics, when someone is sitting in a chair with longer hair, the hair will go over the chair and you're already over directing that hair. So I want the hair to be as close to her body when I'm doing the outline. I'm going to start out with Emma's head to the side here. To start out my framing, I am going to pre-section just in front of the ear, and I'm going to move this out of the way temporarily so I can see very clearly what I'm working with. Now for her old framing, you can see this layer right here. That is my starting point. I'm going to hold my shear directly toward the ground. So I want to open the shear up all the way. The tip is pointed toward the ground. I'm opening the shear up. The hair is going to be captured right in this inside seam of the shear. So you want to make sure you're not cutting with the tip of the shear, you're cutting with the inside of the shear. What this does is makes everything really soft. The closer to the end of the shear, the more blunt the look. So I'm going to be cutting with the inside, which gives it a nice razored effect. So I'm not closing the shear down all the way. I'm letting the hair glide through the shear. Just like that. It's also important to state that when I am opening and closing my shear, I'm never closing it down all the way. I'm just dropping it right here and then I'm reopening it again. So make sure when you're doing slide cutting, you're not closing the shear down at all. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the framing on the other side of the head. So we're going to turn that to the other side. I'm going to repeat the same thing. Everything in front of the ear. I'm going to push the rest of it back behind the ear. Bring everything forward. You also want to make sure that you're not over directing the hair. So you're letting the hair fall exactly from where it's growing, straight down. This is where I'm going to point my elbow straight up in the air, rotate my shears so it's dropped to the ground, and I'm going to reopen my shear and walk it down. When you're doing this motion, make sure you're not sliding the shear along the hair. You're opening and closing as you're gliding down. I'm now checking for balance, so I'm just making sure that everything feels balanced as far as where these layers are falling. I'm now going to start with the side of the cut first before I bring it to the back. I want to bring this part back from the top of the ear as close to the body as I possibly can. And I'm going to clean up this length. Remember, I was going from her old layering from before. So that's removing 3 inches from her length. And I'm just going to take it off in one clean motion through here first. And then I'm going to do the other side. Again, I'm going to start with the top of the ear, sectioning that out. The rest of the hair gets pushed to the back. And I'm bringing all of this forward, dropping it straight from where it grows to the side of the body, removing those 3 inches. You can cut under your finger or you can actually cut above your finger. If you're not familiar with that type of tension, I would advise to cut below the finger until you've practiced it a few times. But I'm going to go ahead and cut through the side here. And in the future, we'll do that in another video. I'm now checking for balance before I go to the back of the head. I need to cut about a 1/4 inch more on her left side. So I'm just going to turn Emma's head back again and take about a 1/4 inch more until I find my balance. And then I'll go to the back. It's really helpful to work from the front to the back. When you're going for a very specific length. So I feel good with that. And now we're going to bring these to the back. And I'm going to rotate the cape to the side so the seam is out of my way. I am going to bring the hair from the top of the ear on each side. And instead of going along the round, I'm actually going to bring everything straight back so that everything is squared off. The reason why is because I want a nice strong line. So I'm going to have to over direct the stuff from the top toward the back here. And I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. Now that I have the sides over directed to the back, I'm using these as reference points for my length from one side to the next. So just like a dotted line, I'm just going to connect these two together. It's important too that your body is squared off. So if my body were to the side, for example, I'm going to be rounding my shape. If my body is square, where I'm aligned with Emma, then the shape is going to be square. This is where I'm going to actually cut above my hand so I can see where my line is. But again, you don't want to pull too tightly on the hair. You just want to hold it in place. So I'm going to open my shear all the way, and you can see right where my stopping point is. So I'm going to open my shear and walk my line all the way to the edge, right through there. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. It's really important when you're cutting this kind of line, when you want to get a really strong perimeter, you want to make sure that you don't tip the head forward yet. So I'm going to keep the head just exactly straight while I'm cutting this part, and then I'll tip her head forward. So I'm going to bring all this hair straight down, and I'm now going to just cut this directly across her body because now I'm on both sides of the shoulder blade. So I'm just going to cut from one point to the next. I'm now going to tip Emma's head forward through here and clean up all the trash from underneath. Okay, now that we've finished the perimeter, we're going to go ahead and sit down for the rest of our layering. All right, now that we have the outline traced and we have the perimeter done, we're going to go into the layering. So I'm actually going to be starting from the top and working my way down. That means I'm going to be working off the part line. So I'm going to go 2 finger widths on each side of the part line, draw everything straight up in the air. And I'm going to turn to the side here so I can kind of show you where my design line is coming from. I'm going to be working from the front to the back, cutting short to long here. So I'm actually going to divide this in half here, starting with the very front from that old framing, short to long. You can see that old framing right there is where I'm starting my guide. I'm doing a slight over direction so that way I can preserve a little bit more length. But once I finish that line, I'm going to use that as my guide for the rest of the layering. Now that I have the layering in place, I'm going to be working from the top to the bottom. So I'm actually going to take the layering and I'm going to be cutting it at a 90-degree angle from the parietal ridge. So I'm going to be bringing everything straight up in the air using the parietal ridge. This is what's called exterior. So I'm actually just cutting short to long. Everything is brought straight up through here and my fingers are slightly pointed outwards, going at a 45-degree angle. I'm working on the vertical. Vertical layers keep everything soft because when it falls naturally. So you can see here a little bit more where I'm cutting short to long. And when that drops, it drops really soft. I'm going to continue that along the whole head. Short to long cutting. And because my guide was already cut short to long through here, the sides help to dictate exactly where that layering is going to be falling. This may feel like a very small amount of hair that you're cutting through this part of the cut, but it is the most significant because this is what establishes where that weight is going to fall through the bottom of the cut. So when you're looking for soft layers, you really want to make sure that everything is more elevated. The higher you take your elevation, the softer your layers will look. This time around, rather than bringing it out through the parietal, I'm going to be doing the sides of the head through here. So I'm going to be taking 2 finger width inch sections and drawing things straight out, and then establishing where those layers are going to fall. One of the biggest things I see happen is that most people bring the hair to them, and by over directing, that's fine. But if you're really looking to have soft layering through the bottom, you want to make sure that you're not over directing it too much, otherwise you keep weight on the bottom. So I'm going to go through the sides, draw straight out, and then point my fingers out exterior, and then I'm just going to be cutting. Now this is her length right here, and that is her layering. So I'm really doing a tiny bit of connection. There's not much I'm taking off. And as I get around through the back of the head, you'll see me taking off more length. But the sides, because I already did her framing, there's not much to cut through there. For this part of the cut, my hands are all the way inside my shears, and that helps me to get better balance with my scissors. If you're cutting with the strength of your palm, so if you actually put your fingers all the way into the blade, you're using the palm to cut, so you've got more stability. If you have it on the ends of your fingers like this, the blade can move back and forth, so it's harder to cut a clean line. So if you want to get one nice clean line, put your fingers all the way through the blade and you're cutting like a seamstress now. So when I take my sections, I'm taking one nice clean cut. As I'm rounding my sections, I want to make sure that I'm staying square with my sectioning. So as I'm taking those pivotal pieces around the head, everything is falling exactly from where it grows. So I'm not over directing hair from the back to the front. This is a traveling guide. So now I'm in the front of the ear, and I just want to make sure that when I'm pulling my section out, I'm pulling it exactly from where it grows, that I'm not bringing it to the back or the front. So that's the only thing you really want to pay attention to when you're actually doing this part, because that is where you can run into inconsistency in your cut if you're not maintaining that strength in your elbow by keeping the hair elevated in the exact same spot when you're doing it. So as you can see, we are all finished with the blow dry. The curtain fringe, I didn't have to do anything for finishing up. We're very happy with the length. I think it marries really well into the rest of the cut. She's got these soft layers around the face. If Emma pulls it back through here and gives it a good shake, she can have some pieces around her face here that showcase her jawline. Look how beautiful that is. Yay. We're super happy with the cut. You can wear it multiple ways and still get it back when you need to. So try this technique out next time. Try these with the Silk Cut Pros from Olivia Garden. They're really great shears, and they also have a really amazing exchange program. So we'll drop some more information down in the show notes, and thanks for hanging out. I'll see you the next time.